Mr. Dowd?
Elwood P.
I'm Miss Kelly.
Well, let me give you one of my cards. If you should want to call me at that number. Don't call me that one because that's the old one.
Thank you.
Oh, it's quite all right. If you should lose it, don't worry, my dear. I have plenty more.
Won't you have a chair, please, Mr. Dowd?
Well, thank you. I'll have two. Oh, allow me.
Dr. Sanderson is very anxious to talk to you, Mr. Dowd. He'll be here in a minute. Please be seated.
Oh, after you, Miss Kelly.
Oh, I really can't thank you. I'm in and out all the time, but you mustn't mind me. Please, sit down.
After you.
Could I get you a magazine to look at?
Oh, I'd much rather look at you, Miss Kelly, if you don't mind. You are really very lovely.
Oh, well, thank you. Some people don't seem to think so.
Well, some people are blind. That is often brought to my attention. Oh, before I go any further, I'd like to introduce you to...
Mr. Dowd?
Oh, Elwood P. Let me give you one of my cards.
Mr. Dowd, my name is Dr. Lyman Sanderson. I'm Dr. Chelmey's assistant out here.
Good for you. I'm happy to know you, Doc. How are you, Doctor?
Well, that's going to depend on you, I'm afraid. Please sit down. You've met Miss Kelly, Mr. Dowd?
I have had that pleasure. And I want both of you to meet a very dear
Well,
friend of
later
mine.
on, be glad to, but please be seated, because first I want to say...
After Miss Kelly.
Sit down, Kelly. Is that chair quite comfortable, Mr. Dowd?
Well, why, yes, thank you. Would you care to try it?
No, thank you. But how about an ashtray there? Could we give Mr. Dowd an ashtray? Is it too warm in here for you, Mr. Dowd? Would you like me to open a window?
Mr. Dowd, Dr. Sanderson wants to know if he should open a window.
Oh, that's entirely up to him. I wouldn't presume to live his life for him.
Well, then, Mr. Dowd, I can see that you're not the type of person to be taken in by any high-flown phrases or beating about the bush.
Is that so, Doctor?
You have us at a disadvantage here. You know it, and we know it. Let's lay our cards on the table.
Well, that certainly appeals to me, Doctor.
Well, it's the best way in the long run. You know, people are people no matter where you go.
That is very often the case.
And being human are therefore liable to mistakes. Now, Miss Kelly and I have made a mistake here this afternoon, Mr. Dowd. We'd like to explain it to you.
It wasn't Dr. Sanderson's fault, Mr. Dowd. It was mine.
A human failing, as I said.
I find it very interesting, nevertheless. You and Miss Kelly, right here, this afternoon, you say?
We do hope that you'll understand, Mr. Dowd.
Oh, yes. These things are often the basis of a long and warm friendship.
And the responsibility is, of course, not hers, but mine.
Your attitude may be old-fashioned, Doctor, but I like it.
Now, had I seen your sister first, Mr. Dowd, it would have been an entirely different story.
Now there you surprise me, Doctor. I think the world and all of Vita, but I suppose she'd seen her day.
You mustn't attach any blame to her. She's a very sick woman. She came out here insisting that you were in need of treatment. That's perfectly ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, Vita shouldn't be upset about me. I get along fine.
Exactly, but your sister had already talked to Miss Kelly here, and then there'd been a call from your family lawyer, Judge Gaffney.
Oh, yes, I know him. Know his wife, too. Nice people.
Is there something I can get for you, Mr. Dowd?
Well, what did you have in mind?
Well, a light. Here, let me give you a light. Now, your sister was extremely nervous. You know, she plunged right away into this heated tirade on your drinking.
Oh, well, that was Vita.
She became hysterical.
Well, I tell Vita not to worry about that. I'll take care of that.
Exactly. Oh, I suppose you have a drink now and then, the same as the rest of us.
Why, yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I'd like one right now.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, so would I. But your sister's reaction to this whole matter of drinking was entirely too intense. Does your sister drink, Mr. Dowd?
Oh, no, Doctor. I don't believe Vita has ever taken a drink.
Well, I'm going to surprise you. I think she has and does constantly.
Well, I'm certainly surprised.
But it's not her alcoholism that's going to be the basis of my diagnosis of her case. It's much more serious than that. It was when she began talking so emotionally about this big white rabbit. I believe she called him Harvey.
Harvey is his name.
Well, she claimed that you were persecuting her with this Harvey.
I haven't been persecuting with Harvey. Oh, Vita shouldn't feel that way. Doctor, before we go any farther, I must insist you let me introduce you.
Well, let me make my point first, Mr. Dowd. Now, this trouble of your sister's, it didn't spring up overnight. Her condition stems from trauma.
From what?
From trauma, spelled T-R-A-U-M-A. It means shock. There's nothing unusual about it. For example, there's the birth trauma, the shock to the act of being born.
That's the one we never get over.
You have a nice sense of humor, Mr. Dowd. Doesn't he, Miss Kelly?
Oh, yes, Doctor.
May I say the same about both of you?
To sum this all up, your sister's condition is serious, but we can help her. She must, however, remain out here temporarily.
Well, I've always wanted Vita to have everything she needs.
Exactly.
Oh, but I wouldn't want Vita to stay out here unless she liked it out here and wanted to stay.
Of course not. Did Wilson get what he went after, Miss Kelly?
Yes, Doctor.
And what was Mrs. Simmons' attitude?
Not unusual, Doctor.
Mr. Dowd, if this were an ordinary delusion, something reflected on the memory picture. In other words, if your sister were seeing something that she'd seen once, well, that would be one thing. This is much more serious. It stands to reason no one's ever seen a white rabbit 6 feet high.
Oh, not very often, Doctor.
I like you, Dowd.
I like you too, Doctor. Miss Kelly here, I like her too.
So, your sister, she must remain out here temporarily. Look, under these conditions, I'd commit my own grandmother.
Does your grandmother drink too?
No, that's just an expression. Now, we assign these temporary commitment papers as next of kin. It's just a formality.
Oh, you better have Vita do that, Doctor. She does all the signing and managing for the family. She's good at it.
Well, we can't disturb her now. It's not a good time.
Well, perhaps I better talk it over with Judge Gaffney.
You can explain it all to him later. Tell him I advised it. And look, it's not as if you couldn't come out here anytime and make inquiries. We're glad to have you. Look, we'll make you out a full visitor's pass. Now, when would you like to come back? Wednesday, say? Friday, say?
Oh, you and Miss Kelly have been so pleasant. Why come back right after dinner? About an hour.
Well, we're all pretty busy around here, but I guess
I don't have to go now. I'm not very hungry.
Delighted to have you stay. But Miss Kelly and I have to get upstairs now. There's plenty of work to do. But I'll tell you what you might like to do.
Well, what might I like to do?
Well, we don't usually do this, but just to make sure in your mind that your sister's in good hands, why don't you take a look around here? You go through this door, turn right just beyond the stairway, you'll come to the Occupational Therapy Center. Beyond that's the library, the conservatory, and the diet kitchen.
For Vita's sake, I better do that, Doctor.
Very well then, Mr. Dowd. It's been a great pleasure to have this little talk with you.
Well, I've enjoyed it too, meeting you and Miss Kelly.
And I will say that for a layman, you show an unusually remarkable acute perception into psychiatric problems.
But is that a fact? Oh, I never thought I knew anything about it. Nobody does, do you think?
Well, a good psychiatrist isn't found under every bush.
Oh, you have to pick the right bush. Oh, since we've all enjoyed this so much, let's keep right on. I'd like to invite both of you to come with me right now down to Charlie's and have a drink.
Well, sorry, we're on duty now, but give us a rain check some other time. Be glad to.
Well, when?
Well, can't say right now. Miss Kelly and I don't get off work till 10 o'clock at night.
We'll go to Charlie's at 10 o'clock tonight.
Well, it's...
Oh, and you, Miss Kelly?
Now, Dr. Chelmy doesn't approve of members of his staff fraternizing, but since you've been so understanding, perhaps we could manage that.
Well, I'll pick you both up here in a cab tonight at 10 o'clock. The four of us will spend a happy evening together. I want both of you to meet a very, very dear friend of mine. But you said later on, so later on it'll be. Goodbye.